and welcome to 10%. You know, soon, Don't Ask, Don't Tell will be history. And before that, of course, Don't Ask, Don't Tell was a great injustice perpetrated on gay and lesbian members of the United States military, including our next guest, former Navy Captain Steve Clark Hall. Welcome.
Thank you, Dave.
So let's ask the obvious question. We were talking before the cameras went live. We've always heard that of all the military services, the Navy is the gayest. Is that stereotype true, and what do you think that means?
If you consider that the Marine Corps is part of the Navy, that's probably true.
And what do you mean by that?
We won't go there.
All right. But you said something interesting that people forget that, of course, it's not just gay men, but it's lesbians serving, that the real quote-unquote gayest armed services at the moment you believe is the Army. Why is that?
Because the group I deal with are the midshipmen of the Naval Academy, and we're kind of closely affiliated with the West Point group. And there's about a third now of the brigade of midshipmen is women, and they tend to be lesbians at a much higher rate than the guys tend to be gay. Mm-hmm. And when you do out the math, and what we're seeing from the kids at the academy now who are already out, the lesbians outnumber the men.
Right. Now, you are that rare breed, a native San Franciscan. You were actually born here and then went east to Annapolis, Maryland for the Naval Academy in 1971, correct?
Right.
Now, with your work on this film that we're talking about today, the Out of Annapolis Project, how have you seen the Annapolis culture, the Navy culture change from 1971 when you went in to 2011?
Well, in 1971, gays didn't really exist anywhere. So it was, if you were gay, and very few would really identify as gay at that time, we just didn't hear about it. As things changed, as you got closer to Don't Ask, Don't Tell, you had the Joseph Steffen case where he was kicked out 6 weeks before graduation. That was the first time people go, wow, there's some gays here and they're good people. Don't Ask, Don't Tell helped, but as we got later and later Don't Ask, I saw it get more and more political. And the politics really bothered me because most of the politics were surrounded about issues which are so unrealistic and had nothing to do with the basis of fact. So it's totally changed. What we knew at the very end is that most of the gay people in the military last year were out to most of their good friends. Mm-hmm. And so the policy was kind of a farce down at the deck plate level, and it's basically the senior people in Congress and the people at home that didn't like it.
Now, when you were in the academy, were you out? Did you know you were gay, or were you trying to stuff that down below decks?
Oh, that was trying to be stuffed down below decks. A lot of us had this split personality. It's like, yeah, I knew it, but it's like, well, it's just a phase I'm going through, and so eventually I'll meet that right girl, and all these things I'm thinking will go away.
Mm-hmm. And then you came out, of course, an officer in the United States Navy, and eventually became a Navy captain. So what ships have you commanded for the United States Navy?
Well, I was only the rank of commander.
A commander.
But the billet of captain when I was the captain of the USS Greenling and USS Drum. No, I took command of Greenling 2 weeks after Clinton won the election. And kind of like Zoe Dunning outed herself because of the excitement of Bill Clinton, I pretty much came out to my crew. I didn't stencil GAY across my forehead.
But you were comfortable with it yourself. At that point, you realized, I'm a gay man. At that point,
I was comfortable. I'd already gone through, my really coming out was 2 years before that when I started hanging out up. I was stationed in Sunnyvale, California, ran with front runners, and those are the guys that convinced me, Steve, the right girl's just never coming by, give up on this concept. So I was comfortable who I was. I get to the ship, and I started the thoughts that Don't Ask, Don't Tell wasn't going to happen. It's just gays are going to be allowed.
Right, because we all thought when Clinton came in that he was going to make good on that campaign promise. And
so I started telling my crew, it's okay if people are different than you. And so I started preparing them for the change.
And what was the response? What was the response to you as a commander, but also from your lesbian and gay crew?
Well, there are no lesbians on submarines at that point, but my crew, the feedback I got was they liked their captain. So I didn't think there were any issues at all. In fact, some of my officers came up to me and said, I wish I would have chosen your lifestyle. My life would have been a lot easier.
So you actually met people who were still in the closet that because of their time in life felt that they weren't able to come out?
Well, a lot of people just can't come out. Even when Don't Ask, Don't Tell goes away, we've asked the kids, how many of you are coming out? Very few. Very few. They just, I'll tell the people I want to tell. In fact, I've already told the people I want to tell is what a lot of them have told us. And they don't feel the need that they need to parade their sexuality around.
I believe the clip or the photo is part of your film, correct me if I'm wrong, and of course we've seen it on newspapers around the world, that famous shot of Senator Sam Nunn in the submarine opposing integration of the Navy and the military with openly gay, openly lesbian service people, and him saying, look at all these bunks. How can you have openly gay people here in a submarine? How did that make you feel when you saw that?
Well, I saw that. The first thing was, I wish he would have been on my submarine, because had he been on my submarine and said that, I would have said right there in front of the cameras, sir, I have a lot of gay sailors on my boat and they don't care. But unfortunately, the admiral who picked which boat they went to, he sent him to a different boat. That admiral knew I was gay, and he didn't like
So
me.
there really is a conspiracy of silence, above deck and below deck.
Yes.
What do you think is going to be the outcome of this current debate? I mean, as we're taping this interview, we're kind of like, well, Don't Ask, Don't Tell is gone, but it's not really gone. How long is this going to take?
They have to do their training. Some of the services said they'll be done by end of April, May, and then there's going to be this 60-day waiting period, and we're not sure what we're waiting for.
What are they scared of?
Change, and it's not going to change. So we don't really know what they're scared of, but there are some people who are scared. But as we know, most of the kids have already come out to their best friends. You'll see a few. The ones who haven't really thought it out they'll be interesting cases, but I don't think we'll see a lot of that.
Talk to us about the film, the Out of Annapolis Project. What was the moment when you realized I have to make a film, and what's the story you tell in that film?
Well, I've been a long-time member of Frameline, and after sitting through 50 screenings, 40 screenings of festival for several years, a few friends and I said, hey, we need to make a movie. For one thing, you get this cool badge around your neck that says you're a filmmaker, and you get lots of free drinks. So I was sitting through a film 3 Framelines ago, and we already had this project online trying to break down the stereotypes, who we are, basically putting a face on who we are. So, we need to take that project, put it to film, and get it out there. So I sent off an email that night to our group of about 80 people saying, hey, who wants to participate? Within 40 hours, had 28 people responding saying, I want to be a part of this project. And I had critical mass and went for it. I'm still working on it.
Have you had anyone who, after agreeing to take part in the film, said, well, I'm just letting too much hang out?
No. No one has come back. In fact, they're all willing to participate. When we do screenings, they show up at the screenings and help with the Q&As afterwards. Everyone wants to participate.
Now, you said something interesting when we were chatting before the interview started, that very few non-gay people have seen this film yet. But I understand very soon some members of the faculty of the United States Naval Academy are looking at this film.
The faculty had their first of 2 screenings today, and they're having another one tomorrow, and then they're going to decide what other audience do they want to have see it back there.
Okay, now what I'm more interested in is, yes, that they're seeing the film, but how did that happen? Did that come down from the top? Did the administration say, you need to see this film, or did you as a former naval officer say, I've got this thing that I think would be of use to my new colleagues here at the Academy?
It was actually some of the gay midshipmen introduced us to some of their professors, because when the trailer came out, the professors found this trailer on YouTube and they started showing it to their classes and to develop class discussion. And so the kids knew that they had the professors which were interested. And so when I was on the yard several months ago, I was introduced to one of these professors, and she said, hey, I'm part of the Dean's Diversity Committee. We're trying to work on the next steps, and can I get a copy of your film?
How is it for you when you go back to the yard?
It's an incredible experience. It's a part of all of us who had the opportunity to attend. It's a pretty amazing place.
What was the most difficult part of your personal journey being an openly gay member of the United States military?
The hardest thing for me was letting go of the fact that I wasn't going to be the father and have kids. I mean, and that also seems to run true with most of the guys. We've talked to around 200, and that's a very guy thing. The guys are very disappointed that they don't have that traditional father role. This is not a lesbian issue. But that's the thing that was most difficult for me and was most difficult for most of the guys that we've talked to.
And what was the most moving part of your personal journey? Not making the film, but for you as Captain Hall.
It is that day that you stand on the ship and you say, I relieve you, sir, and you become the captain of a ship. I mean, that's just a special job that very few people have an opportunity to take. And it's a huge responsibility. You're in charge of the lives of 140 sailors, but at the same time, it's a very special job.
You know, in October, San Francisco welcomes the fleet. And it is one of, if not the biggest, fleet weeks on the West Coast. And this past one in 2010 was a huge success. This year, 2011, of course, is the 100th anniversary of the birth of naval aviation, which started right in San Francisco Bay. How is it going to be for you to, because this film will have been seen by thousands of Navy personnel, for you to be on board some of these ships as an openly gay former Navy officer this Fleet Week?
What will be interesting is this is the first Fleet Week where the gay sailors don't have to hide anymore. So it's going to be interesting. I don't know if we'll see any difference. My guess is we'll see a little difference. You'll see a few more uniforms up in the Castro probably, but
Yeah.
I think it'll be an interesting Fleet Week.
Yeah, and also it just happens to coincide with National Coming Out Day. So, what would be your message to a young ensign, man or woman, who is struggling with their sexuality in the Navy or at the academy? How to deal with it now in this age of almost post Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
Yeah, once they get through that personal transition, the thing that they need to know is that their career is as wide open as anyone. And we have an alumni group called USNA Out, and we're there to be role models for these people. And we're there, and they can contact us, but it's not going to be. They certainly won't have the same fears that the rest of us had, that it's all over if somebody finds out about you. So I really respect them.
What has been the response from quote unquote the gay political classes? I mean, there is the stereotype, and I'd love to know whether or not you think it's true, that if you're openly gay or lesbian, you're automatically or anti-military. Do you think that's true, and what do you have to say about that?
Well, I think that based on most of the people I know, they're not anti-military and they are openly gay. But I hang out in different circles, so I'm not with. And it's like
you're avoiding the question very diplomatically. What has been your response meeting gay political leaders? What has been their response? Have you spoken to?
Well, like Bevan Duffy and Scott Wiener, they support the project. I mean, I haven't heard anything negative coming back from any gay political leaders.
What's the next step for the film? Where are we going to see it? When can we see it? And how can we see it?
Well, hopefully we'll have the DVD out in June. We're completing some more rounds in the film festivals, and if we can get it on television someplace sometime, we would support that.
Maybe on PBS.
Yes.
What's the website for people who want to learn more?
Outofannapolis.com.
Thank you, Captain. Next up, we learn about the good work of the Russian River Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence. You meet Sister Novanilla. We'll be right back.